I checked off Apocalypse Now last week, and I just have to know the disastrous story behind how that film was made. Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back, and today I will be checking Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse off the 1001 movie checklist. If you do not know what the 1000 movie checklist or 1000 movie challenge is, it is basically a challenge I've given myself to check every single film off the 1000 movies you must see before you die book. So far, I've checked 181 films off the list. If you want to know more, you can check a playlist up there with every single film I have checked off so far, along with an intro video. As always, let's get started with a short summary. A documentary chronicling how Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now was plagued by shooting, budget, and casting problems, nearly ending the life and career of the acclaimed director. Documentaries like this are right up my alley because I absolutely eat up anything that has to do with behind the scenes of how a film was made or just film history in general. I absolutely love it. It's like my favorite thing in the entire world. So I was super excited to check this off. It was a film that I've been wanting to see for a long time, but I wanted to wait until I had seen Apocalypse Now before actually watching it because I feel like it kind of, one, would spoil a lot of what happens in Apocalypse Now, which it does, and two, it kind of wouldn't be as beneficial to take in and understand what was happening without having seen Apocalypse Now previously. But I love overall how this was created because most of the documentary is footage that Eleanor Coppola shot while on set in the Philippines for like United Artists PR stuff, as well as some audio diaries that she recorded of her and Francis talking without Francis's knowledge, which, you know, it's not cool, but I mean, she was only going to use it for personal use, but then when they started making this documentary, she ended up using it as some audio footage. But I just love those little touches where the director or someone close to the director has all this behind the scenes footage that helps show and illustrate a lot more than what a reenactment or some illustrations or just talking heads would do. This documentary does have some talking head parts, but they are very few and far between because it has so much supplemental footage and interviews with Coppola and his wife to build everything up and fill in gaps that a talking head wouldn't be able to fill in necessarily. But also the talking heads do add to a lot of the footage that is shown because some of their input is laid over top of the footage. But throughout this only an hour and a half long documentary, it's a little over an hour and a half, which is surprising because Apocalypse Now is a fairly long movie, but I guess you don't need 2 hours to tell the story of a 2-hour long movie. Right off the bat, you do get the sense that not only is the filming of Apocalypse Now cursed, but the whole of making the story Heart of Darkness into a film adaptation has been cursed for a long time. According to one of the writers of Apocalypse Now, John Milieu, Orson Welles and Richard Brooks also tried to previously make this into a film, but they were unable to because of a whole plethora of different reasons. And Welles' involvement in previous iterations of trying to get Heart of Darkness made into something different is interspersed throughout the film by his narration of the actual book for a radio program that he did.
Good evening, this is Orson Welles, inviting you to listen now to The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I'm not disclosing any trade secrets, but I want you to understand now that Mr. Kurtz had taken a high seat amongst the devils of the land. I mean literally. A group of natives appeared, bearing a stretcher. I looked down on the long, gaunt figure of Kurtz, the hollow cage of his ribs.
And because at the time that Coppola was trying to get this film made, it was a very sore subject in the American public, so not a lot of studios really wanted to pick up a film that was so very anti-Vietnam. And because of this, along with Coppola wanting this to be the title film, when he started creating under American Zoetrope, he had to shelve both the Apocalypse Now project and American Zoetrope and ended up doing Godfather Part 1 and Part 2 instead, which is very similar to what Welles did after trying to get Heart of Darkness made. He went and worked on Citizen Kane instead. Some other things that made this film seem fairly cursed is that after only a week of shooting with Harvey Keitel as the lead character, Coppola wanted to ditch him and find somebody else because he didn't feel that Harvey Keitel was really putting in his all or really even giving him the character that he wanted. Sidebar, I would have loved to see some footage of Harvey Keitel as Wilson, but sadly they didn't even show anything, not even in Eleanor Coppola's behind the scenes footage or any test footage that they shot. They must have just ditch that celluloid. Additionally, because the Philippine government had lent them all of their helicopters, they also were able to take those things away when needed to help fight insurgents and their own war throughout their country. So a lot of the times they'd be in the middle of a shoot, especially that storming of the beach scene with Kilgore, they kept taking helicopters. They kept having to push shoots back, wait, or just shoot with less helicopters in the shot. And finally, the biggest issue was when a typhoon hit the Philippines. It destroyed so many of their sets that they had to stop filming for 3 months to have everything rebuilt. And some other really just cursed things that happened had to do with some of the cast members. Not only did Coppola recast Harvey Keitel, he recast him with Martin Sheen, who says himself in an interview in this documentary that he wasn't the healthiest man even at 36.
I had some personal concerns about my own physical condition. I was 36 at the time, and I felt old and out of shape, and I was smoking 3 packs a day. Not a healthy guy.
And halfway through filming, he ended up having a heart attack, which caused him to not be able to shoot for a couple of weeks.
I really had a very close call, and I realized it's nothing that I can put into words. I just knew that if I wanted to live, it was my choice. If I wanted to die, that was my choice too.
He did get better. He came back. There are some scenes in here before he even has his heart attack where he is so drunk shooting the scene in a Saigon hotel room. It's actually kind of terrifying. He punches a mirror, and instead of letting Coppola get him help and bandage up the hand where he punched the mirror, he's covered in blood, crying on the bed, and it's terrifying, but at the same time, like hauntingly beautiful. It's also just, you know, very strange and interesting to see this nearly 40-year-old man working through his feelings on screen while he's blackout drunk pretty much. And of course, Marlon Brando. I did talk a little bit about Brando, but not as much in the Apocalypse Now video. Brando showed up overweight, didn't know any of his lines, he didn't even read the source material to give his character motivation. A lot of the notes that he had for Coppola pertaining to Kurtz was about his motivation that he would have gotten from reading the source material. So a lot of what he was doing while he was on set, he was there for 3 weeks, $1 million per week, and he would stay in his trailer or just talk to Coppola for hours and hours on end, delaying shoots because he had questions about the script and about Kurtz's motivations and all of these kinds of things and changes that he wanted to make. And because he was overweight, he had to be shot differently. But all these different questions and changes and holdups that Brando was doing to the shoot ended up forcing Coppola to just make all of the scenes between Wilson and Kurtz pretty much improv, and a lot of Brando's lines weren't, you know, the best, but they did have some pretty funny outtakes, so here's a couple of them.
Killing for pleasure. You can see light through this. You take the ones that are made for garbage detail. You take the others who are made to think but who can't act. You take I swallowed a bug. He is irresistibly driven. My friend laughs. He's my critic.
And because he was overweight, they shot him in a lot of shadows and dark clothes, and you couldn't really see him, which I loved. In the end, it's really what makes Kurtz. It just builds up the mystery of this character that they had been building for the first 2 hours of the film, and it ended up being a great, brilliant stroke of genius for Coppola, whether that was during filming that he realized that they could do this or in the editing bay, because I know that they added a lot of Martin Sheen's voiceover in later after they had finished shooting, just to give him a little bit more of that inward thinking, morose vibe that he has throughout a lot of the film. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about Coppola. I already was a big fan of Coppola after watching The Godfather and Godfather Part 2, and after watching Apocalypse Now, he is up there with one of my absolute favorite directors. I have I think an obsession with a lot of the film school brat directors, which are the directors like Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas, who were big in the 70s, and they're still pretty big today, but they grew up going to film school. I have a really big soft spot for them because that's kind of what I had hoped to be when I was in film school. But there are just some things about Coppola in this that I found so compelling and made me like him even more as just a person. He was so positive and upbeat at the beginning, and despite how he is towards the end of the making of the film, he gets very down on himself, but he is still very determined to finish shooting this film because it is a passion project for him. He has put up so much of his own money to make this film, and all this is just emphasized so beautifully in probably my favorite quote from the entire documentary.
Did you ever consider quitting?
How am I going to quit for myself? I'm going to say, Francis, I quit. You know, I was financing the movie. How could I quit?
I also love the fact that Eleanor Coppola is so supportive of him throughout the entire thing. In all of their recordings together, especially towards the ends of filming, when he is getting down and upset about Dennis Hopper not remembering any of these lines because he's high as a kite, and Brando just, you know, being Marlon Brando, he is so down and so ready to just almost kill himself or find some way for him to get out of finishing this film. Eleanor is still there, still trying to keep him on the path and showing just how proud she is of him and sticking with him throughout the entire thing. And now for the clip. I almost chose the quote I showed a little bit earlier about Coppola talking about quitting on himself because I love that quote so much. But at the very, very end of the documentary, there's this beautiful moment of Coppola talking about his vision for the future, what he hopes for the future of filmmaking. This film was made in 1991, so since then, his vision has pretty much come to pass, and I absolutely love that.
To me, the great hope is that now these little 8mm video recorders and stuff are coming around. Some just people who normally wouldn't make movies are going to be making them, and, you know, suddenly one day some little fat girl in Ohio is going to be the new Mozart, you know, and make a beautiful film with her little father's camera recorder, and for once the so-called professionalism about movies will be destroyed forever, you know, and it'll really become an art form.
And that is all I have for Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. As always, these are just my opinions, but I'd love to know yours in the comments down below. Let me know what you thought of this film. Have you seen Apocalypse Now? Have you seen Hearts of Darkness? Do the two of them... I don't know what I was going to ask, but let me know your thoughts on both of them, if you have seen both of them, or do you want to see them now? Because they're great and I definitely recommend them. Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to know which films I have already watched or just follow my progress along in general, there is links to a Google Doc in the description down below with every single film I have checked off so far, or you can just check my Letterboxd. I'm also an Amazon affiliate, so if you'd like to start the challenge for yourself, watch the film I talked about today or watch the film I'm going to be talking about next time, there are links in the description, and if you purchase anything from those links, I'll get a small percentage back that'll help make this channel even better. October is coming up, so you know what that means for the next film I'm going to be checking off, some scary movies. I'm going to start with Nosferatu. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate you. Whoever you are, let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new because I have talking these movies, TV shows, filmmaking, mystery, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!